Since 2009, the world has been stuck on a single narrative around a coming global food crisis and what we need to do to avoid it. China, India, Africa. China is constrained in terms of how much more land it actually has available for agriculture, and it has massive water resource availability issues. So the answer really lies in Africa. Now, the African continent, on the other hand, has vast amounts of arable land remaining and significant upside potential in yields.
Today we want to talk about the coming invasion of Africa. But before I continue, I want to tell you thank you for all of you who support this channel. Kindly subscribe if you haven't, and feel free to leave a comment because I respond to each and every one. Now, back to the topic. There is a coming invasion of Africa, and I just wanted to alert you to that. Our focus will strictly be on Kenya, but we'll also talk a little bit about Africa because it's a continent-wide invasion. Now, who's trying to invade Africa? The Chinese are trying to invade Africa. Why? Well, if you haven't heard, food is the new oil. As you saw in that video, in the introduction, the lady was talking about the fact that Africa is the only place with unused arable land. Now, when you consider what is happening in China, you'll understand how these global events affect Africa. Now, in China, China has been pummeled by flooding after flooding after flooding. Vast areas of China have been destroyed through floods. Their food production is seriously beginning to get affected as of today. Now, normally when that happens, China simply imports food from other countries, like the United States. So it's been okay so far. But something has been happening in America. Now, in America, there is extended drought. Before it wasn't really bad, but now it has become a true crisis. When you look at the water levels at Lake Mead, which supplies the agricultural water to California and to southern Arizona, where a lot of food comes from. You know, California and Arizona are really America's food basket. So their food production is beginning to go down because of the extended drought. And this drought doesn't show any signs of easing up. In fact, the situation has become so bad that the dam at Lake Mead, called Hoover Dam, they are considering shutting down turbines that generate electricity. And this will be the first time in almost 80 years from the day it was built that it is running out of water.
The latest U.S. drought monitor map shows large areas of the Southwest are exceptionally dry. That's never good. The worst category is taking a dramatic toll on the Colorado River system that provides water to 40 million people in 7 different states. CBS News senior environmental correspondent, that's Ben Tracy, traveled to the iconic Hoover Dam and shows us how the federal government may be forced to make a drastic and historic decision.
To cover up its backside. But now at age 85, it finds itself uncomfortably exposed. Much of the water the dam is supposed to be holding back is gone.
It has lost over, like in the video, like you can see in these videos, they're saying it has lost more than 100 foot of water. So there's a coming food shortage globally. Now, Africa remains untouched from all these things. See, they're saying that because of climate change, these trends will get worse and worse and worse, that this is the beginning. This is not the end. The flooding in China will get worse. Their food production will get lower. The drought in Southwest America will get worse. And their food production will be pushed into collapse. And it is American surpluses that supply China that keep the Chinese people fed. Now, what happens when the American surpluses disappear? How will China feed itself? Now, you need to understand that China is now becoming a rich country. And once people get used to food, and then there's a disruption in the food supply, what happens? Revolution. Governments collapse. Now, the communists will not allow themselves to be collapsed just like that. So they must secure adequate and consistent food supplies, which is where Africa comes in, because climate change for Africa means that arid areas are going to become wet. For us, it's good news. Don't let anyone deceive you, because we remember the last time it was raining in Kenya. It was raining in semi-arid places. They were becoming now viable. So for us, things are looking up, but for everyone else, things are looking down. You understand? So all other regions have maxed out their food production capability. Africa is not even using 20% of its arable land. So which means that the Chinese will begin to look towards Africa. Which is why there's an invasion that is coming to Africa. And we haven't prepared for that invasion. My job is to simply alert you to all the global things that are happening, because this sort of information is never covered in Kenyan media. Kenyan media, they blanket the airwaves with Western entertainment. Horrible things. They keep the population distracted 100% so that you can never tell what is happening. Well, I'm here to tell you that people are now sharpening their swords because war has to come. Now, when you look at all these other regions of the world, they are preparing. I mean, just do a small research into the preparations that all these other places are making. In Japan, they have built a massive underground city. Massive. You would know, massive. Anything beyond anything you can imagine. I'm not exaggerating. The Americans are building massive underground cities. Yeah, just type in subtropolis to give you an idea of what we're talking about. Massive, huge. You can put in 1 million people with space to, to spare. You go to the Scandinavian countries, they are digging massive underground cities. Massive. Everyone is preparing because they know what has to come. Something has to happen. War is coming and people are preparing. Now, is the government of Kenya preparing? No. So I'm just here to campaign for the country to begin making preparations for what is coming. And what is coming is not good. War is coming. Whether you believe me or not, whether you accept it or not, war has to come. Because the food production will keep on declining in countries which are militarily powerful and they can't do anything to stop the climate change. And the only place that will remain stable throughout all this drama will be Africa. Now, Africa is emerging to be exactly in the same situation as it was in 1890. Full of resources that other people are desperate for while remaining totally disarmed. Africa is like a pretty girl in a prison yard full of men who haven't seen a woman in 20 years. Nothing good will come from it. So I'm here advocating for immediate armament. But unfortunately, the elites that rule the country have already signed a contract and agreements that says that Africa, or rather Kenya, is to remain disarmed. For example, Kenya is a signatory to an absolutely insane agreement that says that we as Africans are not allowed to build or possess nuclear bombs, but everyone else has a nuclear bomb. They've also signed agreements that limit our industrialization. That you need to understand that the government policy is de-industrialization. You have to understand that. That when you see the lack of industry in Kenya, when you see the vast slums, this is intentional policy. This is not a mistake. It is the policy. So we don't have any strategic industries, iron and steel. We don't have dual use industries like tractor industries, because you can turn a tractor industry into a tank industry very quickly. We don't have car manufacturing. In other words, we don't have any capacity to produce internal combustion engines, which you may need in military vehicles. No capacity. This is deliberate and intentional. So I'm just trying to alert you guys that we are very vulnerable to what has to come. Now, why would the Chinese invade Africa? Why not trade with us for their food production? Well, part of the complaint is that Africans are not efficient in producing surplus food, because a lot of the agriculture in Africa is subsistence agriculture, whereby families produce just enough for themselves and not even enough so that you can get a surplus. So you need to mechanize the agriculture, you need to consolidate the population in cities and release a lot of this land into food production, scientific food production, so that you can get surplus. Okay, so to convert the population to do that will take a long time, and people are desperate. The other thing is that they have a lot of contempt for African men, so they don't respect African men. And so I've had this argument amongst the elite in China. When you listen to China blogs and you see some of the arguments that they're presenting, the argument that they say is very simple. They're saying, look, Africa has all these resources Africans are clearly unable to use these resources for themselves or for anyone else. So these people are the rep candidate to be removed so that a more efficient people can utilize those resources for the benefit of everyone else. So that is their argument, that we have to be removed. We have to be eliminated from the planet because we are not as efficient as we can be. And now, that's their argument. That's okay. They can feel whatever they want to feel. That's okay. People fantasize. It is okay. Even you, sometimes when you're broke, you fantasize about robbing a bank. But now, let's talk realistically. You're broke. You would love to get money. So, you begin to think, maybe I should rob the bank. Now, immediately, you know how difficult that would be. And because it is very difficult to rob successfully a bank, you don't do it. Why? Because the bank has deterrence. Now, the question is this: does Africa have any deterrence towards any invasion? It doesn't. Does Kenya specifically, let's focus on Kenya now. Does Kenya have any deterrence to any foreign invasion? It doesn't. Do we have nuclear cover? We don't. So Kenya would be easy pickings for any enemy seeking to invade and occupy the country. Now, historically, we know that the enemy always comes through Mombasa and invades the mainland from there. How do we know this? That's exactly what the Arabs did. That's exactly what the Portuguese did. That's exactly what the British did. In fact, the British built infrastructure from the coast going all the way into the interior of the country to facilitate their military invasion. And so it is with the infrastructure that the Chinese are financing right now. These are the invasion routes. The China Belt and Road Initiative is the invasion route. They are preparing the ground for the invasion. Now, the British were very desperate to reach Lake Nyanza because they needed to control that lake in order to control all the way to Egypt. Whoever controls the headwaters of the Nile can influence the rest of the countries downstream. And that is exactly what the Chinese will attempt to do, because this is a food fight. You have to secure stable water sources. And one of the largest freshwater sources in the world is Lake Nyanza. So we know that will be a primary target for them. So what can we do to save ourselves? Now, this is what we need to do immediately. The civilian population needs to be trained in disaster and war mitigation. Immediately, people need to have basic skills in using arms and armaments. Basic arms, people need target practice. Any civilian should be able to take a rifle, put it, split it apart, put it back together, and shoot. Any civilian should be able to do that at a minimum. All civilians should be trained to understand emergency communications through sirens. People should be able to dig ditches, to set up a machine gun nest. All this basic military training should be encouraged and taught to the civilian population. All school-going kids should be able to use guns. We should have military science class starting in standard 8 or when the child is 12 years old. By the time they're 13 years old, they should be able to do basic target practice. Arms and armaments need to be demystified. People need to stop being scared of guns. We need to legalize guns. Anyone should be able to buy a gun so that we don't have a civilian population that is totally vulnerable to any kind of crisis. Because when a crisis happens, the civilians panic. And they panic because they don't know what to do. And they don't know what to do because they haven't been trained in what to do. So can you imagine a situation whereby you have 40 million people who've panicked? They become an immediate impediment to the movement of troops because they go to the wrong area, they don't know what to do. So you need to train them. So that once you've trained them, it means you have 45 million soldiers. Just like that, they know exactly what to do. They know not to panic because they know what to do. Now, maybe you've seen some of these horrible videos that are coming from Mozambique and from some of these other places where civilians are getting killed. They are circulating on WhatsApp and they are horrific because they are not censored. And when you look at the things that are happening to those civilians, you'll understand how vulnerable you are as a civilian, because if someone was to attack you today in your house, do you have an answer for that? Maybe you have a spear. Maybe you have a room. What good does that do you when your attacker has a gun? So when you see these horrific videos making rounds, online, You feel for the civilians, and you clearly see that to prevent civilians from becoming a victim, to stop you from becoming a victim, you need to be trained and you need to be armed. If you have a gun, you will never become a victim. You remember what happened to the children, to the students in Garissa when they were attacked by the terrorists. You remember? All of them were lined up and killed, and they never offered any resistance. Why? They have no training, they have no weapons, so that 5 people are able to kill over 100 people. That is exactly your situation right now as a civilian in Kenya. Very vulnerable. You have no training, you have no weapons. You're just a victim waiting to be victimized. You're a funeral waiting to happen, if they can find your body. So I'm advocating mass training of the civilian population, not only in the use of arms, but also in basic medical knowledge. Like, how do you stop bleeding? How do you prevent someone from going into shock? This is the sort of information that the government needs to be focusing on right now. We need an Office of Defense Planning to plan out what's going to happen over the next 25 years, because I can assure you an invasion has to happen. Because once this health crisis is over, once the Mzungu has been able to inject you with whatever they're injecting you with, the Chinese will open up at least 10 military bases around Africa and wait it out. What will they be waiting for? They'll be waiting for us to die out. Yeah, because once you've been realized, because we understand, for those of us who are mature, we understand that this is a massive effort at sterilization. And Jubilee is colluding with the Mzungu to do this. You see, they've sold the country out. And so once all of you have realized, the Chinese will open up the military bases around Africa and wait it out. And they are estimating by 2050, the population will have declined to the point that they can now openly begin moving the civilians, because they have to move at least 100 million civilians into Africa between 2050 and 2100. That is the overall plan, okay? In case you are wondering. So we know these are the plans. And do we have an answer for that? We don't. Why? There are no military industries at all in Kenya. No iron and steel industries. No production of heavy industry of any kind. Yet we do have a Ministry of Defense. If you can believe that. So what do they discuss? Because I'm sure they're not discussing future threats. So what do they discuss the whole day? Well, they discuss which type of flowers they're going to send to the Mzungu. Yeah, that is what is important. And so we are seated here waiting to be eliminated. But if you stop any African man in Kenya and ask him, does Kenya have any national enemies? He'll tell you no. He'll tell you everyone loves us. We have no enemies. No one is planning to do anything with us. We are good. See, that is very naive. It's a very naive way to look at life. Because all over the world, everyone is sharpening their swords for the coming fight. It will be a food fight. And we have the best, most stable land. They are saying the result of climate change means that Africa will be even more wet, even more capacity to produce food, while everyone else is starving. So we have to prepare. You have to take this as serious as I'm saying it. It may appear to be very extreme, but I'm telling you, life is becoming very extreme. Other than preparing the civilian population to resist an invasion, the military also needs to prepare the country in terms of infrastructure to be able to defend it. So, we know that the enemy will come over the ocean. And we know that for them to successfully invade the land, they must control the airspace. So, we need to do something called, a strategy called anti-access area denial. That simply means that you prevent the enemy from being able to utilize your own area to facilitate their war ends. So that means that because we know they have to control the airspace, we have to prevent them from being able to do that easily. Now, do you have the capacity to produce aeroplanes? No, we don't. Do you have even the capacity to produce a bicycle? No, we don't. So we need to immediately begin such industries. Now, I'm not proposing that we build planes. Planes are very expensive, especially military planes, and we could never match them plane for plane. So I'm suggesting anti-access area denial through surface-to-air missiles. That is the most effective way, because the missiles themselves are not that expensive to make. So what the government needs to be doing right now is building silos for missiles in strategic places all around the country, with the intention of preventing any enemy aircraft from dominating the skies. Now, this is not that expensive, and you don't have to import the missiles, because these people are obsessed with importing everything. You can build them. The technology has become so cheap that you can actually reasonably build very many missiles. It's not that difficult. And already we have, like the cell phone network can also be used to target enemy aircraft very easily. There's a way it can be done. I don't want to get into those details. But if you have a national cell phone network, you can use it to target enemy aircraft in lieu of having, a lot of radar sites, which are also very vulnerable. So anyway, I don't want to go into all those details. It will get very, technical. But all I'm trying to say is, instead of sending flowers to the Mzungu in England, I think the government should focus on building military silos and housing a lot of missiles, and also preparing the civilian population for what has to come over the next 25 years. As the climate situation deteriorates in other countries, Africa will become a target once more for invasion. And unfortunately, we are in the exact same situation that we were in 1890, whereby we are full of resources and we are totally disarmed. We need to immediately start arming ourselves. But the problem that we'll have in Kenya is the elite will never make steps to arm us. Why? Because they must be given permission by the West. They never do anything without being given the green light by the West. So it is up to us as civilians to get rid of these people once and for all. Otherwise, we are screwed for life.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and comment below. Kenya's time has come. Our time has come. Your time has come. A time to succeed and not fail. A time to grow wealth and not poverty. A time to go up and not down. It's time for you to stop walking and drive your car. Stop renting and buy yourself a house. It's your time to get blessed. Join the CCV movement and together let us kick poverty and unemployment out of Kenya. Become a member today. Donate what you can. And remember that the CCV is the only political organization in Kenya that is squarely built upon Christian values, unlike the rest. We'll see you next time. Thank you.